All right, here we go. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome down the security rabbit hole to another edition of your favorite cybersecurity podcast, Down the Security Rabbit Hole podcast. Here we go. Look at this cadre of characters I have, and of course that means we're going to be talking about something to do with AI and probably SOC. And I'm going to let everybody we're going to go around and let people introduce themselves. And because I far too many people for me to try to remember who everybody is. And if Anton looks like he's from in his car, it's because he's in a Waymo escaping the AI apocalypse on the West Coast right as we speak. So he planned very, very well. So now he's in the car. All right. Anyway, Dan, I'm going to start with you. Who you are and what you do.
Yeah, thanks for having me. So my name's Daniel Miessler. Been doing security probably about as long as you guys have. It looks like we got a bunch of veterans here. And yeah, so I've been doing security about 25 years and got into AI, I want to say around 2017 or so. I started getting into that. So kind of merging the two at this point.
Excellent. Jim.
Oh my, okay. Well, guest podcaster with you for the last year. It's been awesome. No, I've been in security for about with Dan and the rest of the team for two and a half decades, and I didn't get into AI as soon as Daniel did, but I'm definitely knee deep in it, like everybody else right now, trying to figure out how to make it secure.
Yeah. Eric.
Hey, yeah, just like everybody else here, I'm an old school vet. Been doing this for I guess over 30 years now. I've been running more on the security operations side of things versus the AI side of things. But since AI seems to be the hot topic nowadays, of course, I've had to jump into it since it's impacting everything I do nowadays. But yeah, I mean, I go back to the 90s, starting a CERT team at Cisco, running security operations for Salesforce, Sprinkler, Atlassian, and now running security here at Lumio. And I love being a guest on this show because we always have a good time.
Thanks, man. Okay, the man on the move, Anton.
Okay, well, yeah, I wanted to make some kind of a joke about me needing no introduction, but actually, most people here need no introduction. And the whole measuring careers in decades just still freaks me out. But yes, I am Anton Chuvakin. I've been dealing with some of the SIM SOC issues since the early days. And I guess my most dubious claim to fame is no, not writing a book of PCI DSS. It's actually inventing the acronym EDR. And I think this is going to haunt me forever, probably. But here I am dealing with AI security and, of course, with AI in a SOC as well. But the show is fun. Happy to see you all, and happy to have fun together.
Okay, good to have you. Raja, over to you, sir.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me. My name is Raja Mukerji. I'm the co-founder of a company called ExtraHop, which is a player in the NDR space. I've been in this industry since about '94 or so. I mean, and yeah, it's a pleasure to be here with you, and I'm looking forward to this conversation.
And don't let the boyish charm fool you. Raja at one point wrote a. I'm gonna out you, Raja. At one point, you got annoyed with with an inability for somebody to do something that you asked. So you wrote an AI that would then do the thing that you asked. You scared me just a little.
Turns out that if we'd injected a few complaints and unreliability into the AI, it would have been more at parity with the person complaining.
Parity.
Ouch.
Oh, I love it. Rock, over to you, buddy.
A digital twin of Raf actually terrifies me. But I'm Rock Lambros. I'm the director of AI standards and governance at Zenity and the founder of Rock Cyber. I've been in this industry a long time too, like hair down on my shoulders, no grays. When I started, so like 3 years ago. But in all seriousness, I am neck deep in all of the OWASP, Gen AI exchange security initiatives as well. But I come from a security engineering and security ops background. I've built and led several global security operations centers. So this kind of intersection of AI SOC, leveraging AI within the SOC, AI for cybersecurity, securing AI is pretty near and dear to me.
So let's start here. Can we all let's start with what we do all agree on, and then we'll kind of go from there. You guys know me. I've been listening to the show for a while. I wouldn't say a detractor. I'm a slow adopter. I found, I was bleeding edge. I bought the new phone every time it came out. I was on the first version of Windows and Mac OS the minute it came out. But like somewhere between 20 years ago when that was popular and now, like I like being a adopter by the time the third patch comes out, because at least I know it's less likely to blow up my entire existence. I don't buy the latest cell phone. So I'm going to start you guys with this. Can we agree that AI, the LLM version of machines doing work, is a enabler or improvement over what we've been running up until recently, which is the world of SOAR?
That's a low bar.
Hopefully this is not controversial.
It's a low bar at all. Very not controversial at all, right?
That's good. I like low bars, but we can clear that bar and keep going.
Yeah, because look, SOAR never delivered upon its promise, and the reason it never delivered on its promise wasn't marketing collateral or all the glossies in the world. It was the fact that it was just too impractical to keep up with. I mean, you needed a team to manage the SOAR. So your self-healing was really more of okay, you just moved the work to managing the SOAR rather than responding to the incidents.
Daniel, I think you're the resident, or at least on this podcast, you're the resident AI will call you a protagonist. You tend to live on the bleeding edge of this. We've gone back and forth a bit on is this just, on one spectrum, like fancy autocomplete, which I had on my cell phone in a primitive version in the 90s, all the way to like it's sentient and it knows my thoughts. Like, where on this spectrum do you fall with respect to where the technology is at, like as of today?
I think it's really far along. I think it's very early along in actually being adopted and understood by enterprises, though, and I think that gap is pretty huge. So I think the capability of the tech itself is much different than the kind of maturity of organizations with understanding it and being able to actually use it. So kind of two answers there.
That's interesting. Yep. But I think that happens often, right? Cloud computing is the same thing. When it first came to the fore, it was going to solve everything, and then over time we pared back the marketing hype and figured out what it really does. Erik, Raja, anybody, Anti, maybe you're dying to say something. Does anybody want to chime in on this?
Can I add something real quick?
Yeah,
to that?
Go ahead.
I think there's a very specific reason that AI adoption is slow. And it actually relates to what you were saying, Raja, about SOAR. The thing that AI thrives on the most and is just really powerful when you do this is like, if you could just explain things extremely clearly, explain your goals, explain exactly what you're trying to do. And the problem is, I'm sure we've all been doing consulting here for a very long time. You go into the average org and you ask them, hey, what are the goals? What are you actually trying to do? Who's working on what and why? How many people are working on these different projects? How much money is it costing you? They're like, that's a fantastic idea. We should get a project together. And the project is actually to figure out what they're doing with their people and with their money and with their time, because they have no idea. So just imagine that AI is super powerful, which it's not. It's not sentient. It's not conscious. It's not any of that. Just imagine that it were, and it walks into an org and says, hey, I can handle everything for you. What are you guys doing exactly? What are you trying to accomplish? They can't give an answer. You can't automate with AI a thing that cannot be clearly articulated to the AI.
Wait a second. This is
sorry. Me first. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
I know what you're going to say. Go.
Yeah. No. I don't at all. I wanted to bring it into a SOC because I just want to like wholeheartedly agree with Daniel, and I think I just want to bring up a SOC example. And there were plenty of examples where AI in a SOC failed because the previous SOC cannot articulate crown jewels, the procedures, processes, who does what, who is trained in what. If somebody can say what they do, they cannot explain why. How do they figure assets? We just figure it out. We don't, if John doesn't know what this machine does and who owns it, he would know who to call. They also won't know, but they would know the person who would actually know. And a lot of this is just a big hairy ball of ad hoc, or as my daughter says, ad hog. A lot of hog in this. So this is AI. And then I've met optimists who say that AI would look at all that and figure it out. But it exists in many brains, not in any automated or digital systems. How can AI figure it out? It needs to be not only sentient, but telepathic, right? Sorry, that's my
This kind of
outburst.
circles back around. I would say to Raj's earlier point about how SOAR hasn't delivered. I mean, that's part of why we're seeing probably the slow adoption of AI, right? Because the same thing to make SOAR succeed. To Anton's point, you have to know what your kind of objectives, what the outcomes are you're trying to achieve. You have to have processes in place. Like if you want to automate a process with a SOAR, you have to know what it is. If you want to automate a process with AI, you have to know what it is. You can't just throw a SOAR at the wall or throw AI at the wall. Hopefully it's going to solve your problem. And I like how Anton's articulated this in the past, where he's like, if you have a 1990 SOC and you add AI to it, you have a 1990 SOC plus AI. You don't have a 2026 SOC, right?
Yeah, there's another way to see this actually be true, is that if you look at like the giant banks or really advanced industries that have just been really nailing their stuff for decades and decades, and they have like all this knowledge built into their DNA, they can actually explain how processes work, right? And I'm not saying all, but many of these companies who actually can articulate what they're doing, they could pick up AI way faster, and I'm seeing them move much faster with AI. They're more careful with moving with AI because they're also a careful organization, which is why they have everything documented. But they actually can move fairly quickly because they have something to give to the AI. To your point, Eric, you can't automate processes that you don't have.
I think that's
AI won't fix it or replace them either.
You're raising some really good points here, but I'm going to point out that this is more than we see the same problem in more than security operations. I mean, there's a good reason that most vibe-coded code is crap. And what really happens is somebody just tries to add
be careful.
feature,
This is a bit
feature.
too blanket. Bit careful with that, though. I mean, it's a bit of a blanket statement to me. I don't know.
No, I said most. And I know it's a sweeping generalization, but just bear with me here just for a second. We see so many cases where somebody whips out their cursor for the first time, or they whipped out cloud code or something, and they're off to the races, and they don't exactly know what they're coding, but they let the tool pick, say, React, and halfway through, the context window fills up. The tool forgets that it picked React in the first place and starts going and refactoring React, and we see that sort of organic growth, if you will, in the code that it's generating, because there's no strict articulated strategy. Nobody's taken a step back and say, okay, what are we trying to build here? So then when you take a look at tools like, say, Kiro, that AWS released, Kiro took a step back and they said, okay, before we write a line of code, we're going to work on a functional specification. And I know that's the point at which people roll their eyes and say, oh, boring specifications. But it's a really good way of making sure that the problem that we're trying to solve is articulated before we solve it. And yes, I agree. Look, Anton, I'm not saying for a second that every piece of vibe-coded stuff is crap, and there are people who know how to use it properly. But what I'm saying is, unless somebody knows what answers they're trying to get from the tool, they're not going to get the answer they want.
Well, I think that's where SOAR did succeed. It was in very static, very deterministic run books, although like the integrations were probably very brittle. Raj, kind of like to your point with the maintainability of it early on, right? And with AI, specifically generative AI, which is by and large the modality we are leveraging today, right? You're kind of trying to find the patterns between the themes, but this goes back to a fundamental issue. Most SOC playbooks are shit, right? They are not good. For all the reasons that you've described, don't understand the business context, and also the business context changes drastically. When you go talk to a security operations leader about fundamental business process re-engineering within their socks, they look at you like you just landed from Mars, right? But and this also goes back to source failures, right? If you're just automating bad processes, you're making them fail faster and sometimes more catastrophic ways. And this is a non-technical problem, right? There's a non-technical solution and it involves humans, right? AI can't do that business process re-engineering for you. And I would argue that next to Daniel, I am the most pro AI in this panel, but like it's got to be done without blinders on, right? You can't just say AI all the things and that's my strategy.
Yep.
And that seems to be a lot of people are doing too. Here's
Yeah.
Claude Code, go knock yourself out without giving him a goal or an objective, or even like, what are you doing? Just here, go use the AI.
Yeah,
You know what's funny about that?
That's how I learned, like using Claude Code for the first time. I was just like, go. But I didn't put anything in production, right? Like I didn't expect it to actually work, right? And now that I'm like, I don't know, a year-ish into code, I think I'm a lot better at it. But that's how people learn. But yeah, I'm not rolling it out anything public-facing production, anything, right?
Yeah, I think one way to see this problem is to just replace AI with the word like doing, or replace it with thinking and doing if you want to, like depending on the context there. But if someone says, what's your solution to so-and-so, or how do you accomplish so-and-so? And your answer is, well, I just do it. Okay, that's cool. What are you doing? Yeah, well, we have a thing for that. The thing that we use is the thing that does. Okay, cool. You have said absolutely nothing. You have not articulated anything. Saying that you have a doer, okay, it executes things. Oh, it executes what? Well, you haven't said anything.
So this is like, it's properly depressing. So this is becoming properly depressing because if the problem is always goals and whys and what do you want, then do we all conclude quietly that the problem is unfixable and go home? Or like this is a little like, can somebody just bring up something optimistic, and not only from the rigid environments? Because I think Rock's point was exactly right. Like the where things are rigid, they're written up on paper put into Visio put into SOAR, everything works. Then things change, they redo it manually, and then things are seemingly okay. But what about everybody else who is still fuzzy about what they want? How is their future going to arrive?
I think this is the key to it, though. I don't remember exactly who said it. I think it was Vinod Khosla, but don't quote me on that. And what he said was there's two types of people with AI. There are those who use AI as a cheat code. Just skip it, use it to they use the AI to answer questions, write essays, write answers, what have you, with no idea of what they actually want to do. They just outsource all of it. And there are those who use AI as a force multiplier. Now, if you're using it in the latter use case as a force multiplier, it's almost a foregone conclusion that you know what you're trying to do. A force multiplier for what? To what end, if you will.
Right.
So yes, I agree with you. If you jump in and say, hey, you know what, I'm just going to use AI to shortcut everything, I'm not going to think about it, so it's going to do my job for me. Yeah, you're not going to get what you want. But if you know what you want, it's going to be helpful.
Yep.
It concerns me then that a lot of the sales pitches that I see for AI technology is essentially that, like, don't worry about anything over here. We're going to sell you this box. It's going to do amazing things. This thing called AI, and everybody's got a cool name for it, is going to solve the problems. And we're back to like, but what would you say the problems that you solve are? Like, don't worry about it. All of them. We're going to solve all of them. We're going to make your SOC more efficient. We're going to reduce false positives. We're going to eliminate people. Yes. We're going to do all the things. We're going to, back to like zero. We're going to find all the things that, all the unknowns. We're going to do all those things.
I think people who don't know what they're doing, or companies who don't know what they're doing, they've always been looking for a magical solution, right? It's like, the problem is we had a bad marketing department. Oh, that head of sales, that was like, he was horrible. And we're getting rid of him because now that's the solution. Like, there's always this, when you don't have a clear sort of vision internally, you're looking for someone who has the vision, someone who has the answer. And now here AI comes along
AI.
and it could do all this crazy stuff. And they're just like, well, now the answer is AI. It's like, okay, cool. How are you going to implement it? What are you going to do with it? And they're like, yeah, well, the big thing for us is just having an AI strategy. And it's like, what does that mean?
But
You're
now
absolutely-
you've successfully
visionary
described
even if
every sorry, Brock, but now you've successfully described every vendor at RSA 2026.
Totally.
and every vendor that's about to be a black hat. But even if you have
Not with AI.
that visionary, right, in your organization, the C-suite is enamored by perceived cost savings, right, through AI, right?
Mm-hmm.
So even if you have that visionary, the person that or people that know what they're doing, or those external pressures from the C-suite to leverage AI at all costs to reduce costs, which we know isn't happening. Does that? I mean, that in my opinion, that hamstrings them, right? So even with the competent people, I think the business drivers are misaligned to what AI can do or should be doing.
But Rock, that's what
I
we
think
did
if
that with. Sorry, we did that with cloud computing, though. Like with cloud, everybody said, "Oh, it's going to be so much cheaper across every use case, and you'll
And
be able to
faster
go
and
across
better."
cloud and burst and faster and bigger and better and more secure." And crap, it was none of those things because
It was more
shockingly,
secure.
everything was an
More
add-on, and
secure.
nobody knew how it worked.
Yeah, but you know what? 20 years later, we're just now seeing I would say not even a mass adoption, but an uptick in companies moving back on-prem, right? Now,
Okay.
because of
Right.
you didn't have to hire data center people, lease data centers, do all the hardware maintenance, the hardware swaps, all that kind of things, at the cost of not being able to depreciate assets on the books, right? So clouds had this 20-year revenue grab of now maybe we're going to start to see some reversal, but that reversal to where the pendulum actually flips, that's probably another 20 years off, honestly. So like we say that, but the reality is cloud's here, it's been here, it's not going anywhere. And I think that's the same with AI, except we're realizing that cost fallacy a lot sooner.
Well, yeah, I think the key thing here is like deep understanding. Like do you deeply understand what cloud gives you and what it doesn't? And most companies don't, therefore they make bad decisions. Do you deeply understand what AI gives you and what you actually lose with AI? No, most companies don't. So they're going to spend money that they shouldn't be doing, because if you don't have that deep understanding, you can't properly apply it to some things and not use it for others.
You know,
That's a good point.
I think we are
I think
again
it's
sliding
like-
into the trough of depression. Yeah.
But there's also another thing. So I just got back from 6 weeks of travel in Asia for spreading the word and the gospel according to my company. And one of the things that I noticed was that there's a lot more AI cybersecurity early adopters in Asia than there have been for almost every other technology I've seen. So, for example, when we first launched
Really?
the company,
Wow.
we in Asia in particular. So when we first launched ExtraHop, I remember this was 2007. 2007 April, we went to the AWS launch, and everyone was talking about AWS, and here we are. 22 years late. No, not 22 years. 18 years later. 18 years later, and still people are talking about when do we move to cloud? Regulated industries. There's an excuse. There's all these things that are coming.
Yep.
Whereas in Asia, this
Yep.
time around, I mean, what GPTs became mainstream a couple of years back, and everyone's talking about, okay, how do we regulate it? How do we understand it? How do we govern it? How do we use it? And the acceleration, I've never seen anything like the ramp that we're seeing in AI, and particularly AI and cybersecurity.
Do you feel like this is because they understand the problems better? Like, why do you think they're more eager?
A couple of things. Firstly, I think the Chinese strategy of open weighting everything has driven more ubiquity and has sidestepped the governance and sovereignty questions. That's thing number one. And I'm going to save my analysis for how I think that is so backwards. China driving open weights and LLMs, but that's for another day. So that's thing one. The other thing we're also seeing is the prevalence of things like the AI assistants, the OpenClaws, the Hermes. These things in the world, these are being brought into the enterprise whether people like it or not. And I think that's scaring a lot of people. And so now, and finally, we're now starting to see the advent of actual malware, ransomware gangs, all using these attacks repeatedly. I think I saw something a couple of days back about some ransomware that hallucinated, some AI-driven ransomware that hallucinated in the middle of it and just destroyed everybody's files without saving the key. So yes, these things, they clearly need to polish these things, but it's happening absolutely everywhere. And I don't think people can just say, hey, we're not going to adopt AI, because it's going to be it's on them whether they want it or not.
This is a strange place now, because we're debating, or we're really kind of bringing it back to a lot of what the promise of SOAR was, but knowing the limitations of SOAR, obviously this wasn't it. So now we're saying, okay, there's a lack of, let me see if I can sum it. There's a lack of understanding on behalf of the buyer. I would say there's a significant amount of overselling on behalf of the buyer or the seller.
To put it mildly.
Put it mildly. Okay. Yeah. I'll leave it at that. No need to poke fingers. They know who they are. What we've seen, and I've seen this in the headlines, is the tremendous amount of hype buildup that we've seen for AI as a technology, as applied to cybersecurity. Like that is, I think the line from Big Trouble in Little China is, you're writing checks your body can't cash, right? Like we are writing some big old checks, and I don't think the tech can cash those. And I think some of that is the fact that like we're selling things, technology simply, I don't think we'll ever be able to do. I don't think technology will ever be able to think. Right.
Again, long term. Don't do long term predictions, please, on the air. You may eat them in 5 years, but
I'm sure I'll be wrong by then. I hope to be dead.
I think they already think so. I don't know if we want to debate.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I'm sorry, Daniel and Anton, pile up on Raf. Great idea.
That's we'll save that one for a different podcast. But all right, but we're effectively saying garbage in, garbage out. If you don't know what you want, you're not going to get what you don't know that you want, right? So it feels like we're at a if you think about like the chart that's like low temperature, high temperature, okay? The selling is at like ultra high temperature. The understanding is somewhere around like just above freezing, lukewarm. And then like the capability is somewhere in the middle. So we've oversold a technology that can get about halfway to what we've told people it can do. But meanwhile, most people are buying it, have no idea what to ask it to do, because they don't know what it actually does or how it gets there. Am I off?
I mean,
I think that's genuinely insightful. Yeah. Okay, go Daniel. Sorry.
Yeah.
Wait, hold on. I'd like to point out that Anton said something I said was genuinely insightful. I'd like to mark this day on a calendar.
All right.
So that was at your ringtone.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm trying to figure out for the statement that you made, Raf, what is the problem that you think we need to solve? Because it sounds like you're reacting to like the hype of the AI industry, but like, I think that's got its own like marketing problems and just people. I think the root of it is still people not understanding the tech or not understanding their own org or understanding their own goals. And when you don't understand things, everything looks attractive. Everything looks cool. Every solution looks like it can save you. It's like at the root base of this, it's fundamentally like people don't understand what the tech is and don't understand what their problems are. Therefore, they can't tell that solution is not going to solve their problem.
Nailed it. That's exactly So if you ask me what the problem from that is, I think there's a twofold issue here. One, and I don't think we're going to ever be able to solve this because PE and VCs exist. The hype is insane. Like the hype that we've seen around and the carnival barkers we've seen around AI technologies. This is the craziest I think I've ever seen. And I've been around since the DOS days, right? Like This is the craziest I've ever. This will change the world. It will make sure it will obsolesce every human worker. We will work as humans will no longer exist. We'll just feed the computers, and they'll give us money and give us meaning in life. Like,
That's a fringe view,
what?
though. That is a fringe view for now.
Yeah.
Have you heard Dario
that is
talk?
probably a fringe view.
If you're not watching the video, if you're just listening to the podcast, you just missed a quintessential Anton moment. And I'm going to tell you, go watch the show. This is one you're going to have to see for yourself. But okay. All right. So I think this is a natural break point because I want to take this conversation in the direction of how do we then, now that we've identified sort of the and largely agree on, like, okay, we don't have a technology problem. We have an education and marketing problem. Cool. So how do we take the technology that as this group knows it exists and apply it to something rational in cyber, in operations, to then raise the bar for attackers? So on that note, I'm going to take a brief pause here. And if you're listening to this right now, come back next week because this is going to be part 2. Stay tuned. Okay. So welcome back for part 2. And as I said at the end of the last section, I want to talk about how we're going to take this problem we've identified between marketing, education, and then, you know, what technology can do. And let's switch gears, because I think we all agreed, like, this isn't an inherent problem with the technology. Technology marches forward. It presents us with opportunities to enhance our lives and make things better for both attackers and defenders. It's always a double-edged sword. So how do we take AI as it exists today, whether we're talking about one of the frontier models, whether we're talking about open source? Maybe we should discuss that. How do we apply that rationally to cyber to give give ourselves, I don't want to say advantage, because I think that may be the wrong way to couch it, but like to improve our situation in the SOC? Dan, let me start with you, because I think you probably have the most seat time trying to explain this.
Yeah. I've actually got a way I've been thinking about this. So I love the fact that security is like a combination word from Latin. It's se and cura, which is like without and worry. So it's like the job of security to make the receiver relax and not panic, right? And being ex-military, I think about, I just hate being surprised. Surprise is a bad thing. So when I think about what a SOC is, and more generally a security program, I've always thought of that as a collection of questions. I have questions about the world that I want to be asking continuously. I want to know, who are the current threat actors? What are they currently doing? What tools do they use? What are their IOCs? What are their TDPs? Those are all questions. I have hundreds of them, okay, that make up my security program. The challenge with having hundreds of those, when the whole world is like moving constantly and changing constantly, is the asking the questions is difficult enough. Going and actually querying data sources to bring back the answers to them and combine them all together, that's difficult enough. And then actually parsing them and figuring out if we need to take some action. So it's like, it's this giant list of questions. Then it's taking action as a result if we do find something. Yes, so-and-so actor is targeting medical device companies, which we are one of. And they have IOCs. And yes, we did find them on the network. So we're going to go take action. Okay, cool. You want to take action? You want to do that constantly, without end, at scale on a massive network? Well, cool. Do you have a 4,000 person security company or security org inside your company? And the answer is no. We have 32, or we have 7, or we have 9, or whatever. So the way I think about AI helping here is it can help you ask the questions. It can help you gather the response to the question, right? Gather the answer. Collapse that in with your context of what you're trying to protect. And it could also help you take action. So if you know the questions you're supposed to be asking, and you're able to gather and nurture those questions, and you also know the types of actions that you would take, Well, now you just have, forget about tech, you have a set of questions and actions that make up your program. Start there. That is universal. That's before we even had any tech. I have questions and I have actions I want to take as a result of the answers. And now, the way I think of AI is it's a whole bunch of eyes, it's a whole bunch of little mini brains, and a whole bunch of little hands. So now our org is whatever, 50,000 security people large instead of 7 or 9 or 12.
I am shocked to be even more optimistic on AI than Daniel. I never imagined being in that position. But I want to add one tiny thing to this if I can. I think that for people who genuinely don't know what they want and what they have, there are still use cases for AI in guiding them to discover it, in plotting the path, in finding patterns in this. And so if they think they know X and Y and they are puzzled about Z, AI can tell them, hey, you guys know X and Y. You know these assets, you know these systems, you know these things. What about this other parts? And then humans will go figure it out and then report back to AI. I think that on the local context, make local context from the enterprise available to machines, machines themselves can help. And I've seen examples of that, at quote unquote day job, where some of the stuff that existed in people's heads evolved into digital realm and then evolved into AI. And that really works well if you work hard on this. But it is a shocking position to be on the left from Daniel on AI optimism. I am kind of surprised about that.
I didn't see that coming. Hey,
did not see this coming either.
To what Anton is just saying, I've heard you talk about the technology behind ExtraHop enough to hear that I don't think we needed, like what he was saying, I don't think we need AI for, right? I think that's just basic machine learning.
So, look, AI is being used as a blanket for everything, right? The bottom line is machine learning is part of a discipline of AI. Now, generally speaking, when we talk about AI these days, we're talking about generative AI, specifically generative AI. But the entire family, machine learning is very much part of AI. I think it's important that when we talk about what we're referring to over here in this podcast is a little bit less of machine learning and trend spotting and cleaning up signal, and more about the automation and more about using the massive amounts of data that we have in order to interpolate and make decisions that we don't have to reinvent the wheel for. That's what we're really talking about in terms of those use cases. And so I think we're really talking about generative AI. I don't think we're talking about machine learning over here, although there are parts where you couple machine learning with generative AI, you get a better result.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, real quick, Raf, I mean, I think the easy way to solve that question is you just define AI as tech that can do something that previously can only be done as a human. So machine learning does that, and AI does that. They are part of each other, parent and child. But, previously it was like no tech will ever identify a cat versus a dog. That was a thing that could only be done by a human. Then machine learning did it.
That's right.
Yeah, the Turing test, another thing. It just keeps moving. It keeps getting more advanced, but it's still all the same. The reason we're shocked by it is because previously only a human could do it, such as beating someone in chess.
So we've got some technology that can teach us things. One, help us identify patterns and knowledge from very large data sets. So I'm going to pose something to you guys, and maybe we can talk about this. So I've been thinking about kind of, Dan, some of you, some of your papers and reading unsupervised learning for a bit, kind of looking at it from the operations perspective. I think there's 5, I will say, aspirations and levers that we pull when it comes to increasing, when we say things are going to get better, right? So early on, it was velocity and volume, because that's the first thing we had to tackle, right? I think SOAR was trying to solve that. As everybody got laptops and phones and cloud, the amount of signal and raw data required us to process a volume of data at such a large pace at a velocity that a human simply couldn't do, right? We couldn't stare at logs anymore. And so we solved that by implementing all kinds of machine algorithms and SIMs and SOARs and all sorts of things. And we got reasonably good at velocity and volume. And then we realized that I think we were really crap at accuracy and precision, right? So while we could handle a lot of volume of data really, really fast, we were actually really bad at trying to figure out like which of these things was actually bad, and if like 4 analysts looked at this and for these data sets, whether they could all point to the same thing and say it was bad for the same reason. So we said, okay, AI, that's the solution AI is going to bring. And I believe, and I know this is getting better, but accuracy is getting better. Precision is not there. Or do I have it backwards?
No, you're right.
No, I think that's correct.
You're correct.
You're right.
Right. And so as we go from one large LLM to agents, right, which are very narrow, very task oriented on specific data sets, accuracy and precision are shooting up. What I think is still missing, right? What I think is still maybe not missing. What I think is still troublesome for us to get is the last one. That to me, it's clarity. Understanding what's actually going on, because it's the ability to prosecute a detection and say, yes, this is bad for this reason and we should do this as a result. That's one entire thing. But then being able to say, but hold on, there are other things going on here that I'm going to then bring into the broader context, right? And say there's something bigger going on here than just this detection or this alert. It's this other series of activities. This identity was compromised as a result. This data is at risk. By the way, this puts us in out of compliance with these sets of compliance regimes, blah, blah, blah. Do you guys agree?
You nailed it, but you nailed it. Actually, you had the answer in your question, in your statement. The answer is context. Right? So when you take a look at a model right now, you take a look at Quen, you say 35 billion parameter module, you look at 105 billion parameter modules, and you've got 600 billion parameter modules in GLM 5.2. And so we're looking at all these things, and everyone's talking about the number of models or the number of parameters. But the bottom line is, in order to make a model actually usable, it's not just the size of the number of parameters and the number of weights. You need a large amount of space for the context and the KV cache. And that's where innovation has really trailed. So Google came up with something called TurboQuant about a month back, which compressed the size of the KV cache, allowing you to have massive amounts of context. But yes, in order for us to use these models correctly, we have to have a huge KV cache so it can pull data and context from everywhere in the enterprise, correlate these threads together, and make a good decision based on the weights inside the model. And that's where people are not really following the plot quite as much, because everyone's focusing on the parameters but not optimizing the retrieval and the context.
Erik, you've been really quiet. Can I pitch it over to you? Because I know you've run enough SOCs to know, to have someone input on this, but it scares me when you're too quiet.
It's interesting getting everyone's kind of perspectives from, kind of the more kind of data science side, the more kind of company perspective side, where, I'm the guy that's in the trenches every day, living the pain. And it's interesting to hear the conversation that goes on around, what needs to happen in order for these things to work or provide value. From my side, subtracting the AI here, like I've always had to try to come up with that value, out the gate without any of this new technology. And so, for those of us that have been doing this for a long time, like we've kind of had to figure this out already, with SOARs, with SIMs, with the tools we already have today, and make something, out of it that provides, value and outcomes to the companies. And so, like one of the things I've found valuable was moving to kind of a headless SOC model, where you're not logging into tools or consoles, you're logging into like Jira, right, to get all your information. From that point of view, like you've had to have some process in place. You've had to have, for this event coming out, what data sources do I need to enrich it with in order to make sense out of it? So when it lands in a ticket, the person looking at it has all the information they need there to make a decision. So it kind of forces you to think about these problems up front as you're building the detection, as you're building the automation, as you're building the alerting. When I insert AI into this, like there's two perspectives I'm looking at it from. Is like, does it work? Obviously, if we're sitting around 80 or 90% accuracy, boot until you get to 5 nines. I don't want to hear from it, because that goes back to the time savings. Are you actually saving me time? If you give me 10 alerts and I know 8 of them are right, 2 of them are wrong, I have to look at all 10 to figure out which 2 are wrong, right? It's really, really simple example.
Right, but
From
it
that
works
point of
well
view,
for 10.
I
It fails
wouldn't.
for 10,000, right?
Yeah. At the same time, to the 10,000 scale, right? When we do need all that additional context for these models to go over these alerts, and I mean the volume of alerts are massive, even at a company my size, or not talking even about Google or Salesforce size, where you have hundreds of thousands, millions of events per day. And if you need all this context in order for the LLM to make sense and tell you what's good and what's bad, how much is that going to cost you at the other end, right? So when I'm here, like we have, all the name brand tools, obviously, all the CNAPs and the SIMs and stuff like that. And if I were to go to my CFO tomorrow and say, hey, look, I know we're already spending, $10 million on the budget for all these tools, whatever it is, but I need another $2 million to put an AI tool on top to make them all work. I'm going to get laughed out of the room, right? And so that comes down to the other part of this, and why it's so hard to adopt the AI here, especially when they're all using LLMs. They're expensive. And so when we are seeing the companies that are being successful out there that I've seen, like when I went to RSA and walked the floor, and there's dozens of vendors there, the ones that are being successful, like I see them kind of following, it's kind of the model that Anton described when he had his talk at RSA, where are rules working just fine? Sure. Are automations working just fine? Sure. Not broken? Why fix them? What are the things that aren't broken, and what are the things that we can't tackle with these tools today? Let's see if we can apply AI there. Will that help us solve these problems? Versus throwing it at everything. I mean, so there is a sense of not only do you have to have a process set up so you understand what you're doing. I mean, you have to know what you're doing with the alerts. There's also the question of, does this make sense to apply to this problem? Just because you have a hammer, not everything's a nail. And so there's also that perspective that we look at it, from a practitioner point of view. When I'm walking the floor again, talking to the vendors, and they say we apply AI, we'll solve all your problems. That's cool. I don't want you to solve all my problems, right? I have a particular set of problems that are really hard, whether that's velocity of or volume of alerts, or the complexity of them, or whatever it is. I want to solve that problem for me and my team. And one of the questions I always ask, and again, I got this from Anton and Tim over there at Google, when they look at one of these solutions and, say you implement this thing and you're 90 days down the road, I want to come back and say, has this made my life better? How has this made my team?
Yeah, what got better once you deployed it? Yeah.
What got better out of it? And if they can't answer that question, or if you can't answer that question, you just got suckered. You're paying for something that has not materially raised the bar.
I've got a crazy idea here. What if the concept of a security program, actually this applies to a company, applies to any scale, Federation of Planets or whatever. What if prior to taking ownership, or you're elected to governor or emperor or whatever, you have to articulate your program in text? So check this out. You just describe exactly all the questions that you want to be asking, and the answers that you would like to get back, and the actions that you would take. So you build your entire program just clearly articulated in text and diagrams. That's all you get to use. You only get to use like Excalidraw and like Markdown or whatever. So you literally have a functional, you can say to anyone, to your customers, to your peers, to your management, whatever, this is my program. If I get this running, we will be good. You will be able to move quickly as a business and feel safe doing so. And then that is perfectly articulated. You have all the actions that you would take, all the follow-ups, all the triggers, all the alerts, all the detections. They're all clearly articulated in text. We haven't talked about any tech yet. We don't know if it's 1978, 1980s, doesn't matter.
Yep.
What is the program? Describe to me the program. And that, I think this is extraordinarily powerful, because now you say, okay, it's 1979. Okay, all right, cool. We have a security team. That's a bunch of people. And we're actually, manually doing alerts. We're looking at network logs, right? We're looking at Cisco logs basically, and we're parsing them in some sort of way. I guess we have grep at that point. But what's cool about it is that same security program can move from 1979 all the way to 2039. Doesn't matter, no difference. That's the security program, is the text form of it. Now the real question is, here comes the crazy AI vendor. They're going to magically do everything for you. You show them the program, you're like, what do you do here? I'm doing this much of this program right now. I only have 38 people, so I can't do everything in my program that I would like to do. I'm doing about 14% because to really do this, I would need a giant team. And they're like, well, no, we could just solve it all amazing or whatever. It's like, okay, well, how much would that cost? Where does it run? Like, I have a bunch of questions about the implementation, but at least they're not able to just talk about, oh, I could do everything and amazing and blah, blah, blah. No, this is the program. This is what you have to like tell me you're able to accomplish.
That's the most sane take I think I've heard in a long time. All right. I know that we're getting close on time, so I want to give everybody a chance to kind of give us the 1 or 2 minute summary of where you think this is going inside the next 12 months. If we meet again in July of 2027, where can we be and where we might be? Those are probably going to be different. And so take a minute or two, and I'm going to start with you, Anton. You go first. In a year,
Perfect.
where could
Of course,
we be,
now
and where will we be?
Now I'm the guy with no prep time for the answer. Got it. Thanks, bud, for doing this. But yes, I know. I think in a year, a lot of people who are kind of laggards and who are still in the we don't understand what we are doing, but we just want to try it harder, would probably be incrementally where they are now. I feel like I need to split the answer into the leaders and the laggards. And I don't think in a year anything would change in the laggards. I feel like they would still continue to experiment with chatbots. Or they may not ban the chatbots anymore, as if they're in Europe. And they would be like, oh, wow, a chatbot, that's something new, right? So, but where the leaders be is what gets me excited. I think that the leaders will achieve even higher degrees of automation for some of the stuff we've spent years automating. So I am imagining the detection response function at a top tier company. And again, I'm not naming names here. And I feel like even today's people may not recognize what's going on. Like I've seen some of the stuff we changed in a year in detection and response, and it's just enormously impressive. And I'm talking about the year past. A year forward will be more changes. So I feel like the chasm between leaders and laggards would just be kind of many dimensions away, not just many light years. This is my fear, is that in a year some of us would kind of be even more alien to the mainstream / laggard kind of org. This is my fear. Where can we be? Maybe the enlightenment would raise, and maybe there would be enough of the AI lifts all boats, not just the elite 0.1%er boats. Sorry if my vision's a bit dark. Well, it's not dark, but it's dark for some.
I like it. All right, Daniel, your turn.
Yeah, I think the separation that you're talking about there, Anton, is good. I think I would separate it based on the people who know themselves and know the tech. Most importantly, know themselves. I actually learned that from Eric Cole, RIP there. But yeah, know thyself, which I think he got from Sun Tzu. I feel like the biggest thing that needs to happen as part of AI is this transition from opaque to transparent. So do we actually deeply understand everything happening in our company? And I think within a year or two, companies are going to start dying because they are opaque and they're unable to articulate what they're about. Therefore, they're not able to use AI. Therefore, they will get lapped by people who have those things.
Okay, I get it. How about Erik? I'm gonna let you go next.
Sure. A year from now, I mean, from a practitioner in the trenches point of view, I'm hoping that the use cases kind of shake themselves out, because now we're seeing people apply AI to all the things, right? They're throwing spaghetti at the wall and see what sticks. And I'm hoping for us, a lot of those use cases that don't stick will be gone, and we'll have a much better idea or sense of what use cases we can apply this to and begin to apply them there effectively. At the same time, I almost like, we see the cloud today where there are people that are just cloud native out of day one, and we see people that are still trying to figure out how they get there, in 20 years later. And to echo Anton and Daniel here, I think we're going to see the people that are AI native or AI early adopters or looking at the use cases at work, jumping on board with those, and we're going to have people that are just sitting in the back who 20 years from now will be asking themselves, how do I adopt AI? Just like we're seeing people ask today, how do I adopt the cloud? So,
Rock, I'm gonna let you go next because you've been oddly silent. Except that you're on mute.
Still
Hopefully, a
oddly
year
silent.
from now, we've capitalized on the speed, right? Like the speed and the ability for AI to handle kind of that velocity and the veracity of data that organizations face in their SOCs, right? So hopefully a year from now, we've been able to kind of automate away that toil, right? We've invested in the enrichment of the data, in deduplication of the data, and the correlation in those first draft summaries. I think that's the genuine ROI that we'll end up seeing, but there's a real trap there because I still see people equating those faster first draft summaries to correctness. And if you look at the training data that a lot of these engines have been modeled off on, right? They're like real SOC data streams. They're like 99% benign, right? So a model that says all clear, right, could look brilliant right up until like the first wire transfer leaves the organization, right? Like we're so focused on accuracy and precision, and when we're talking to these vendors about these metrics, that we don't talk about recall. Recall is the actual incident that was detected, and that's the without recall, that's the attack you miss, and that is a separate machine learning discipline, right, or metric. And so clarity here is going to be the real prize, and it's also the easiest thing to fake, right? Because generative AI does a really, really good job at taking a lot of dispersed data and giving you a really smooth sounding narrative around it. And, if we think that we're just going to automate away those decisions, we're fooling ourselves.
All right, I like that. That's a good take. All right, Raj, I'm going to give you the final word on this. What are you thinking?
Yeah, look, I have some very specific predictions. So, firstly, I think the first place where AI is going to disrupt the enterprise is around the way data is handled in the enterprise. Right now, you've got all these multiple scenes, you have multiple data lakes, you have all this. Everything's like sort of living in various islands of dysfunctionality, if you will. And the way people have tried to solve this is by using tools for a data bus, consolidate the data, trying to figure out solutions with sovereignty. But you don't need to do that if you have AI. If you have AI and you have vector databases, you can cluster the database together. It lives where it lives, and you can use tools like RAG or what have you, Quadrant, and all these other vector databases to Pinecone to pull the information back together so that you can get better information to power your security responses. So first thing I think we're going to see the change of data architecture specifically for SOCs, for security response, what have you, because AI makes it so much easier and so much more actionable. The next thing we're going to see a primary change of the indexing of that data. It used to be by application, by scene, I use Splunk here, I use Oxerve there, what have you. I think we're going to see the data being moved to being user-centric, user and identity-centric specifically. And all that plumbing has been laid down for years and years. We've seen federated identity, we've seen things like SAML, we've seen things like third-party cookies, what have you. Now they're going to be used not just for authentication, but for indexing of multiple behavioral patterns, which AI excels at doing, because you can pull everything from all over the place, consolidate it, and figure out what's happening. And this is very, very heavyweight for a person to do, but it's much more streamlined and achievable for AI. So these are the two things I think we're going to see. We're going to see a disruption in data architecture, specifically around the SOC, and we're going to see much more identity-based indexing.
All right. Well, that's good. Jim, you want to add anything to that, or I think I've got nothing after these guys. This has been fun. I like listen, I like going from the theoretical, like, what is the problem? What are we trying to solve? What's the theoretical issue? And then, like, how do we apply this stuff? Because I think we've all said it at some point today. For somebody that's in a CISO that's in the enterprise, in Eric's seat, the challenge is, how do I actually solve problems with all this crap you guys are trying to sell me and trying to get me to buy into? And there's a lot of it. Some of it is really, really great, groundbreaking and earth-shatteringly cool. Some of it is just cool. And some of it is really, really old pigs with really shiny lipstick. And, it's hard to tell the difference, right? Simply because we don't actually know what good look. I'm convinced in cyber, we don't actually know what good looks like. We know which direction it's in, but we don't know what it looks like, because we've been going back and forth on the chat here about the fact, and I think Jim pointed out early on, is like, hey, we don't actually know the fundamentals really well. So to then go build tools on top of poor fundamentals is probably a bad idea, right? But if maybe AI is to the point where it's like, hey, by the way, there's an asset you didn't know about over here. Let me show it to you. By the way, it's been doing these bad things, and here's why, and here's what to do next. That may actually solve something, because, like, we keep putting, the paper towel tube up to our eyeballs and, like, saying, I can solve this. And you look over here and go, new problem, I can solve this, but it's the same elephant. And on that, I think I'm going to close it out. You guys, it's been great having you aboard. Thanks so much for everybody's time. I know this is an hour out of your day. I actually probably want to do this again at some point, because this stuff changes fast enough, and there's enough interesting stuff in it that we might get this crew together. Hopefully Anton won't be held hostage by a autonomous driving vehicle in a parking lot somewhere. Or I don't know. Actually, I have no idea where he's going. But anyway, guys, Daniel, Jim, Rock, Raja, Eric, and even Anton, thanks for joining us. You guys that are listening, hope you caught the video. Hope you get a chance to listen to the podcast at least once. This is going to be a real doozy to come back to, especially in like 6 months, to see, are we right? Do any of us have any idea what we're talking about?
Not at all.
And I guess on that note, I'm going to end it and say thank you for listening. We'll catch you guys another time, another place, on another Down the Security Rabbit Hole podcast. It's a pleasure. We'll see you again. Bye-bye. Thanks.
Thank you all.